The space station called Velar 9 floated in the darkness between 3 solar systems. It was old, it was huge, and it held the most famous school in the galaxy. The Galactic Integration Academy had trained soldiers, scientists, and leaders from over 200 different species. Some had scales, some had feathers, some had no solid body at all, but none of them had ever been human. Until arrived. She stepped off the transport ship with a small bag over her shoulder. Her black hair was tied back in a simple ponytail. Her eyes were dark and calm. She was short. By human standards, she was average height for a woman. But here, surrounded by aliens that stood 7 or 8 feet tall, she looked like a child. The registration officer was a creature made of blue light. It floated behind the desk and made a sound like wind through broken glass. This was its way of speaking. Name, it asked through a translation device. Human Earth. Purpose of visit. Student, Combat Theory Program. The blue light flickered. Perhaps this was surprise, perhaps it was amusement. Combat theory is a difficult program. Many species with natural weapons fail. You have no claws, no armor, no venom. Smiled slightly, I have other things. The creature processed her documents and gave her a room assignment. As she walked away, it flickered again. In its 500 years of service, it had never seen a human in person. It found her strangely unsettling, though it could not say why. This room was small but clean. A bed, a desk, a window that showed the endless stars. She unpacked her few belongings and sat on the bed for a moment looking at her hands. They were ordinary hands, soft skin, short nails, nothing special at all. She had trained for 7 years for this opportunity. She had beaten 400 other candidates in tests of mind and body. Earth's government had chosen her as the first human to attend the academy. The weight of her entire species rested on her shoulders. She took a breath and let it out slowly. Then she went to find her classroom. The hallways of the academy were crowded with aliens of every shape and size. Some walked on 2 legs, some walked on 4, some floated. Some crawled along the ceiling. They all stared at as she passed. She heard whispers in languages her translator could not catch. She felt their eyes on her back. She found the classroom for advanced combat theory and stepped inside. The room went silent. 30 students sat in curved rows facing a large screen. They were massive creatures with scales, fur, shells, and skin of every color. At the front stood the professor, a 7-foot with 4 arms and eyes like black mirrors. Ah, said Professor Eth. His voice was dry and clicking. Our human student, please find a seat. Walk to the only empty chair. It was in the middle of the room, surrounded by aliens who looked at her like she was something strange they had found on their food. She sat down without a word. The student behind her leaned forward. She could feel hot breath on her neck. She could smell sulfur. Human, a voice hissed, you are in my space. Did not turn around. The chair was empty, now it is not. A low growl came from behind her. She ignored it. The student was named. He was a species of reptilian warriors who had conquered 12 star systems through blood and fire. His scales were dark green. His eyes were yellow with black slits. His teeth could bite through metal. Had never lost a fight in his life. His father was a war chief. His mother was a battle priest. He had been raised to believe that strength was everything and weakness was death. Looking at the small human woman in front of him, he felt insulted. This soft creature with no claws and no fangs dared to sit in a combat classroom. It was a joke. It had to be a joke. Professor Eth continued his lecture on plasma-based weapons. He explained how energy could be shaped into solid forms, how plasma whips and plasma blades worked, how they could cut through almost anything. The key, he said, is the containment field. Without proper containment, plasma disperses harmlessly. The field gives it shape, the field gives it power. Raised her hand. The professor paused. No one ever interrupted his lectures. Yes. The formula you showed for containment efficiency is outdated, said. Her voice was calm and clear. Earth scientists revised it 3 years ago. The new formula accounts for quantum fluctuation in the energy matrix. It improves efficiency by 12%. The room was very quiet. Professor Eth studied her for a long moment. Then he checked his notes. Then he made a sound that might have been a laugh. "She is correct," he said. "I will update my materials." Whispers spread through the classroom. The human had corrected the professor. The human, who had no claws and no scales and no natural weapons of any kind, had known something the great Professor Eth did not know. Felt his scales grow hot with anger. He watched the back of his head and imagined what it would feel like to crush it in his hands. When the class ended, gathered her things and walked out without speaking to anyone. She did not see the yellow eyes that followed her. She did not hear the low promise that whispered to himself. "Soon, human, soon I will teach you where you belong." But if she had heard, she would not have been afraid, had faced worse things than angry reptiles. She had faced the empty darkness of space. She had faced the doubt of her own people. She had faced 7 years of training that had broken stronger candidates. She was not here to make friends. She was here to prove something. And she was only getting started. 3 weeks passed on Station Velar 9. The stars outside did not change. The metal hallways did not change. But inside the academy, something was shifting. Went to her classes every day. She sat in the same seat. She took notes. She answered questions when the professors asked. She never spoke to the other students. She never ate in the common areas. She trained alone in the small gym reserved for delicate species. And every single day, her test scores were posted on the academy boards. At first, the other students laughed. A human in combat theory, she would fail within a week. Her soft body would break. Her weak mind would give up. Humans were known across the galaxy as a young species, barely out of their own solar system. They had no reputation. They had no history of war among the stars. But the test scores kept coming. Day after day, his name appeared at the top of the theoretical examinations. She scored higher than the in tactical analysis. She scored higher than the crystalline in physics calculations. She scored higher than Professor Ev's own teaching assistants in weapons theory. The laughter stopped. Watched the boards every morning with growing rage. His scores were good. They had always been good. But now this human female sat above him, looking down from the top of every list. He could not understand it. Humans were supposed to be weak. Their bodies broke easily. They could not survive in vacuum. They needed constant food and water and sleep. They were fragile things meant for fragile worlds. So why was she better than him? The practical combat sessions were still separated by species. The Academy called it a safety measure. They said different species had different needs, different training methods. What they really meant was that they did not want the weaker species to get hurt. Or perhaps they did not want the stronger species to see what the weaker ones could do. Trained alone, she ran on machines, she lifted weights, she practiced movements that the security cameras did not recognize, strange positions, strange breathing. The guards who watched the feeds thought it looked like dancing, slow, careful dancing with an invisible partner. They did not know they were watching something far more dangerous. On the 21st day, Professor Eth held a class discussion on species integration. The topic was simple. Should all species be treated as equals in galactic society? Most students gave careful answers. They talked about diversity. They talked about cooperation. They talked about the strength of unity. Then stood up. Some species are simply better than others, he said. His voice was loud and proud. This is not hatred, this is fact. The people conquered 12 systems because we were strong. Other species were conquered because they were weak. Nature decides these things. The classroom was quiet. Many students agreed but were afraid to say so. The strong should lead, continued. The weak should follow. Putting a prey species in a combat program is not kindness. It is cruelty. It gives them false hope. It wastes everyone's time. He looked directly at. Some creatures are meant to be hunters. Some are meant to be hunted. Did not respond. She sat in her chair with her hands folded. Her face showed nothing, but there was a small smile at the corner of her mouth. That smile made blood boil. After class, he waited for her in the corridor. He brought his closest allies, was a female with red scales and a scar across her face. The twins were 8 feet tall, made of living crystal, with hands that could crush stone. When walked out of the classroom, they blocked her path. The hallway was crowded with students from many species. They all stopped to watch. They all knew what was happening. No one moved to help. Human, said. He stepped close to her. He was almost twice her height. He could smell her strange mammal scent. You think your test scores make you special? Looked up at him. Her dark eyes were calm as deep water. I think nothing about you at all. The words hit like a slap. He had expected fear. He had expected anger. He had not expected dismissal. You are nothing, he growled. Your whole species is nothing. You hide behind your books and your numbers because you know the truth. In real combat, you would last 5 seconds against me. Maybe, said. Would you like to find out? The corridor went completely silent. Blinked had she just challenged him. The prey had challenged the predator. Tomorrow, he said, his voice dropping to a hiss. The combat arena, full contact, no rules except survival. His hand moved to his belt. There was something there, something that hummed with dangerous energy, something that was very illegal on most civilized worlds. Saw it, she understood what it was. What time, she asked. Showed his teeth in a smile full of knives. Sunset, station time. I will be there. She walked past him without another word. The crowd parted for her. As she passed, some aliens looked at her with pity. Some looked at her with confusion. A few, just a few, looked at her with something like respect. Laughed when was gone. She is dead, she just does not know it yet. But did not laugh. Something about the human's eyes bothered him. They had not been the eyes of prey. They had been the eyes of something waiting. That night sat alone in her room. She looked at her hands again. Soft skin, short nails, nothing special. She thought about her grandmother who had survived a war when she was young. Her grandmother had told her stories about human strength, not the strength of muscles, not the strength of weapons, a different kind of strength. We are not the fastest, her grandmother had said. We are not the strongest, but we are still here. Every species that hunted us is gone. Every enemy that underestimated us is dust. Remember this, the race does not always go to the swift. The battle does not always go to the strong. Sometimes it goes to the one who simply refuses to fall. Closed her eyes and began to prepare. Tomorrow, she would show them what humans were made of. The combat arena was built in the heart of Station Velar 9. It was a circle of black metal, 200 feet across, surrounded by rows of seats that rose toward the ceiling like the inside of a bowl. Energy barriers protected the audience from whatever happened on the floor below. The barriers could stop plasma fire, explosive debris, and flying bodies. They had been tested many times. By sunset, every seat was filled. Word had spread across the station like fire through dry grass. The human had accepted a challenge. The human, who weighed less than one of his arms, would fight the warrior who had never been defeated. Betting pools had opened in every section of the station. The odds against were 47-1. Some aliens bet on how long she would survive. The most popular guess was 30 seconds. Pushed through the crowd near the arena entrance. He was human, one of only 3 on the entire station. He worked as a cultural liaison, helping human visitors understand galactic customs. He had never expected to watch one of his own people die. He found in the preparation room. She was sitting on a bench, tying her hair back with a simple band. She wore her academy uniform, gray jacket, gray pants, soft shoes, nothing else. "You cannot do this," said. His voice was shaking. "There are diplomatic channels. I can file a protest. The academy board will listen." "They will listen and do nothing," said. She finished with her hair and stood up. "His family has power. His species has power. Humans have nothing but words. Words are better than death." Looked at him. Her eyes were kind but firm. "I did not come here to be protected. I came here to show them who we are. And if you die, then I will die standing. That is also who we are." She walked past him toward the arena entrance. He wanted to stop her. He wanted to grab her arm and drag her back to the transport ship and take her home to Earth where she would be safe. But he knew it would not work. He had read her file. He knew what she had done to get here. 7 years of training. 400 candidates beaten. She had broken bones that healed wrong and broke them again so they would heal right. She had trained in deserts and frozen mountains and the bottom of the ocean. She was not a victim walking to her death. She was something else entirely. The arena floor was cold under his feet. She walked to the center and stood still, her hands at her sides. Above her, thousands of alien faces looked down. She heard whispers in 100 languages. She heard laughter. She heard a few voices calling her name, cheering for the underdog. On the other side of the arena, a gate opened, walked out. He was massive. His green scales caught the light and gleamed like armor. He wore the traditional combat gear of his people, lightweight plates over his chest and shoulders. His yellow eyes found and his mouth opened in a predator's smile. "Little human," he called out, "I am glad you came. I was worried you would run." "Talk a lot," said. "I have noticed this." Smile disappeared. Professor Eth floated down from the observation deck. His body moved on currents of air that only he could feel. He landed between the two fighters and raised one of his 4 hands. "This is a formal challenge under Academy rules," he announced. His voice carried to every corner of the arena. "The fight ends when one party yields, is unable to continue, or dies. Lethal force is discouraged, but—" he paused and looked at. "Accidents can happen." "I will try to leave enough of her for identification," said. The crowd laughed, said nothing. Professor Eth looked at both fighters. "Are you ready?" Cracked his neck. His claws extended from his fingers, each one sharp enough to cut steel. "Ready." Took a breath. She shifted her weight slightly, settling into a stance that looked almost lazy. Her hands were open. Her shoulders were relaxed. "Ready." The professor raised his hand high. The arena went silent. 10,000 beings held their breath. The hand came down. Moved. He was fast, faster than anything had ever seen. His body blurred across the distance between them, claws reaching for her throat. He expected her to freeze. He expected her to scream. He expected the easy kill of prey caught in the open. But was not there. She had stepped to the side at the last possible moment. Not a big movement, just a few inches. Claws passed through empty air where her neck had been. He spun, surprised but not worried. A lucky dodge, nothing more. He struck again, a sweeping blow that could have cut a normal human in half. Ducked under it. He kicked at her legs. She stepped over the attack. He brought both fists down like hammers. She was already behind him. The crowd had gone quiet again. This was not what they expected. The human was not fighting. She was not even defending. She was simply not being where attacked. "Stand still," growled. Sweat was beginning to form on his scales. He had never missed this many times. "Stop running like the coward you are." "I am not running," said. She was breathing easily. Her uniform was not even wrinkled. "I am waiting." "Waiting for what?" "For you to stop playing games." His eyes went wide, then narrow, then filled with rage. His hand went to his belt. His fingers closed around the weapon he had hidden there. The weapon that was banned on 40 worlds. The weapon that had killed champions and destroyed armies. The plasma whip. He pulled it free and activated it with a press of his thumb. A cord of pure energy uncoiled from the handle. It was bright blue, almost white at the center. It hummed with power. It left afterimages in the air as it moved. The crowd gasped. Some aliens stood up in their seats. The professors in the observation deck leaned forward. This was illegal. This was against all rules. But no one moved to stop it. Smiled. His teeth were very white against his dark scales. "Now, human," he said, "let us see you dodge this." He raised his arm. The plasma whip rose with it, coiling in the air like a living thing, hungry and bright and waiting to feed. Looked at the weapon she looked at. And then she smiled. The plasma whip sang through the air. It was a sound that everyone in the arena knew, a high, sharp whine like a dying star. The energy cord moved faster than eyes could follow, leaving a trail of blue-white fire behind it. Where it touched the arena floor, metal melted. Where it touched the air, sparks fell like rain. Swung with all his strength, the whip curved toward in a perfect arc, aimed at her midsection. At that speed, with that power, it would cut her in half before she could feel it. It would be over in less than a heartbeat. Every being in the arena knew what would happen next. Except they were wrong. Did not dodge, she did not run, she did not even step back. She stepped forward. Her left arm came up as she moved. The plasma whip wrapped around her forearm once, twice, 3 times. The energy burned through the fabric of her uniform instantly. It touched her skin. It seared her flesh. And she grabbed it. Her fingers closed around the cord of pure plasma. She planted her feet and pulled. Was yanked forward, his feet leaving the ground. He weighed 400 pounds. She weighed 130, but she had leverage. She had position. She had something else that no one in the arena understood yet. She had decided not to let go. The plasma burned. Of course it burned. Could feel her skin blistering, bubbling, dying. The pain was enormous. It filled her arm, her shoulder, her entire body. It was the kind of pain that would make most species pass out. The kind of pain that would make them scream and release and surrender. But humans were different. His grandmother had told her stories. About soldiers who kept fighting with bullets in their bodies. About mothers who lifted impossible weights to save their children. About people who walked for miles on broken legs because giving up was not in their nature. Humans had evolved on a death world. Everything on Earth had tried to kill them. The animals, the weather, the diseases, even the plants. And humans had survived not because they were the strongest or the fastest or the most dangerous. They had survived because they simply refused to stop. The pain was there, acknowledged it. She felt it completely, and then she put it in a small box in the corner of her mind and continued. She twisted her grip on the plasma whip. The energy fought against her, trying to escape, trying to disperse. But she held it tight. She could feel the containment field weakening under her grasp. She could feel the weapon dying in her hands. "Impossible," whispered. He was still on his knees where her pull had thrown him. His yellow eyes were wide with something he had never felt before. "Fear." "Your weapon," said. Her voice was calm, steady, as if she were discussing the weather and not holding a burning star against her body. "It has a flaw." She twisted again. The plasma whip made a sound like breaking glass. "The containment field depends on continuous energy flow. When you restrict that flow," she pulled harder. Her burned flesh screamed. She ignored it. "The field collapses." The plasma whip snapped. Not deactivated, not powered down. Snapped. Broken, destroyed. The energy dispersed in a shower of sparks that fell around like blue snow. The handle in his hand went dark and dead. The arena was completely silent. Looked at her arm. The damage was severe. Her skin was gone from wrist to elbow. The flesh beneath was red and raw, already weeping clear fluid. Smoke rose from the wound. She could see the edges of muscle. She could feel blood dripping from her fingertips. She flexed her fingers. They still worked. That was enough. She walked toward. He scrambled backward, his claws scraping against the arena floor. The great warrior, conqueror of 12 systems, was crawling away from a creature half his size. "What are you?" he breathed. Did not answer immediately. She reached down and grabbed him by the throat. Her grip was strong, far stronger than it should have been. She lifted, using her legs and her back and her will, and rose with her. "I am human," she said. She began to speak, and her voice carried across the silent arena. Every being heard, every being remembered. "My species evolved as persistence predators. Do you know what that means? It means we did not have claws or fangs or venom. We had legs that could run forever. We had bodies that could lose water and keep moving. We had minds that could track prey across continents." She lifted higher. His feet left the ground. "We would chase animals until their hearts exploded from exhaustion. We would follow them for days, never stopping, never resting, until they could not take another step. And then we would kill them with rocks and sticks." Her grip tightened, gasped for air. "We performed surgery on ourselves without pain medicine. We cut open our own bodies to remove tumors and infections. We set our own broken bones. We cauterized our own wounds with fire." The burned flesh on her arm steamed in the cold arena air. She did not look at it. "You think pain makes us weak?" She almost laughed. "Pain is our oldest friend. We know it better than any species in this galaxy. We have lived with it for 200,000 years. A little heat is nothing." She brought close to her face. His yellow eyes met her dark ones. "The galaxy sees humans and thinks we are soft, easy to break, easy to kill, and maybe we are. Maybe you could tear me apart right now if I let you go." Her grip did not loosen. "But you would have to kill me completely. Because as long as I can move one finger, as long as I can draw one breath, I will keep fighting. That is what humans do. That is what we have always done." She dropped him, fell to the arena floor, and did not get up. He lay there staring at the metal ceiling, trying to understand what had just happened. He had been beaten, not by strength, not by weapons, not by speed. He had been beaten by something he did not have a word for. Stood over him, her burned arm hanging at her side, blood pooling at her feet. "Yield," she said. It was not a request. Closed his eyes. For the first time in his life, he spoke the words that warriors were taught to never say. "I yield." The arena erupted. The sound in the arena was like a living thing. 10,000 voices screaming, roaring, clicking, whistling. Every species had their own way of expressing shock. Together, they made a noise that shook the metal walls. Stood in the center of the chaos, bleeding and burned and completely calm. She watched as medical teams rushed onto the arena floor. Some went too, who still lay on his back, staring at nothing. Others came toward her. Reached her first. He had jumped over the energy barrier, breaking 6 academy rules in 3 seconds. His hands were shaking as he held out a medical kit. "Your arm," he said, "your arm." She looked at the wound. The skin was destroyed from wrist to elbow. Raw tissue glistened under the arena lights. The pain was still there, huge and burning, but she had pushed it so far down that it felt like something happening to someone else. "It will heal," she said. "It needs treatment now. Burns like this can cause permanent damage, nerve death, infection." "Then give me the burn cream and let me finish." Stared at her. Finish what? Turned away from him. She faced the crowd, thousands of alien faces looking down at her from every direction. They were still making noise, but it was changing. The shock was fading. Something else was taking its place. She raised her good hand. The arena slowly went quiet. "I did not come here to prove that humans are the strongest," said. Her voice was not loud, but the arena's systems carried it to every ear. "We are not. I did not come to prove we are not that either." She held up her burned arm. The wound was terrible to look at. Many aliens turned away. Some made sounds of disgust. A few leaned forward with something like respect. "I came here because the galaxy needs to understand something about my species." She began to walk in a slow circle, making sure every section of the audience could see her face. "When you threaten us, we do not run, we face the threat. When you hurt us, we do not break, we adapt. We learn, we find ways to survive that you never imagined." Her burned fingers moved, closing into a fist, opening again. Every movement was agony. Every movement was proof. "When you tell us something is impossible, we do it anyway. And then we write research papers about it so others can do it too." A few sounds came from the crowd. Laughter, maybe, or something close to it. "Humans are not your superiors," continued. "We know this. We are young. We are small. We are soft. But we are not your inferiors either. We earned our place in this galaxy the same way we earned everything else." She stopped walking. She was standing over now. He had sat up but had not tried to stand. His yellow eyes followed her every movement. One painful lesson at a time. She reached down with her good hand. For a moment flinched, thinking she meant to strike him again, but her hand stayed open, waiting. "Get up," she said. He looked at her hand. He looked at her face. He did not understand what was happening. "I beat you," said. "That means nothing now. You learned something today. Use it. Become stronger. Be the warrior your people believe you are, not the bully you were becoming." Slowly, carefully, reached up and took her hand. She pulled him to his feet. It hurt her arm terribly. She did not let it show. They stood face to face, the human and the. She barely reached his chest. She had just broken him in front of his entire world. "Why?" asked. His voice was rough. "Why would you help me stand?" "Because victory means nothing if your enemy stays on the ground," said. "My species learned that lesson too. It took us a long time. Millions of dead, cities burned, nations destroyed. We learned that true strength is not about crushing others. It is about lifting them up." She released his hand and stepped back. "Besides," she added, "I will need sparring partners. You seemed adequate." Something changed in his face. The fear was still there, but mixed with it now was something else. Not quite respect. Not yet, but the beginning of understanding. "You are insane," he said. "All humans are insane." "Probably," agreed, "but we are here and we are staying." The medical team finally reached her. They sprayed foam on her arm that numbed the pain and began the healing process. They wrapped bandages around the wound and gave her injections that made the edges of her vision soft. Professor Eth descended to the arena floor. His face showed no expression, but his voice was thoughtful. "Miss," he said, "in 40 years of teaching, I have never seen anything like that." "Thank you." "I am not sure it was a compliment." He paused. "The plasma whip was illegal, will face discipline, but you caught a weapon made of fire with your bare hand. That was either brilliant or suicidal." "Both," said. "Humans often find those two things happen together." 1 year later, the Academy's curriculum included a new module, Human Persistence, Physiological and Psychological Factors. It was required reading for every combat student. Graduated with honors. His final thesis was titled Underestimating the Small, A Warrior's Reflection. He and became training partners, then allies, then something close to friends. And the twins apologized publicly. They had seen what humans could do. They did not want to see it again from the receiving end. Submitted a report to Earth's government. His recommendation was simple: send more humans. The galaxy was ready for them. Graduated at the top of her class. She returned to Earth for 1 month, visited her grandmother's grave, and then came back to Velar 9. The Academy had offered her a teaching position. the first human instructor in the history of the institution. Her first class was Advanced Combat Theory. The room was full of young aliens from dozens of species. They all stared at her with wide eyes. They had all heard the stories. Stood at the front of the room. Her left arm was covered in scars, pink and white lines, where the plasma had burned away her past and forged something new. She held up a small plasma lighter. She flicked it on. A tiny flame appeared, blue and dancing. Without expression, she touched the flame to her palm. She held it there for 3 seconds, 4, 5. Some students gasped, others looked away, a few watched with something like hunger. She closed the lighter and showed them her palm, a small burn mark, already healing. Lesson 1, she said, fear is a choice. Pain is a message, not a command, and giving up is never, ever required. She looked at their young, strange faces. Shall we begin? The class was silent. Then slowly, one by one, they nodded. Smiled. Outside the window, the stars burned cold and eternal. But inside this room, something warm was growing. Understanding. Respect. The beginning of a new chapter in galactic history. Humans had arrived. And they were only getting started.